This podcast is a presentation of Chapel Valley, a community church. More information from Chapel Valley can be found at www.chapelvalley.org.
I had the real distinct pleasure of being here twice last year, right? Twice? I got to come to Chapel Valley, and I invited you guys to join our team. I told you the story of how it all came about, and I also reminded you at that time how I was so happy to come to this church because so many of you remember that time in my life. There's not very many people in the world that remember that time in my life, but you walked through this that time of what my very first calling to Russia, which started in 1994, exactly 20 years ago. So that was really fun to share the story. And so here I am again, 9 months later, sharing with you what God has been doing in this last year. And I do want to say thank you. There's so many people supporting us. You're supporting us financially. You're supporting us with prayer. You are supporting us by sending out our newsletter. Thank you guys so much. Those of you on that team that helped with the Christmas newsletter, thank you. And just being there for us. We have felt so loved. And I'm really convinced that, the way that the Russia team, you're coming to Russia and you're inviting people to join your team, and we do the same thing. I'm convinced it's the best way because you have so much love and prayer support that way. And so I'm just so thankful for each and every one of you. So anyway, so the update, most people ask, the very first question they ask is, how are your kids doing? How are your kids? Lots of times I'll forget to talk about my kids if they're not sitting right in front of me. And so I just want to start with the kids right off the bat and tell you the grace of God. When you say yes to God, no matter how hard it is, but when you know something is the Lord, you know it in the depths of your heart, and you overcome the obstacles to saying yes, and you say it, and you walk that direction. The grace of God to meet you in that place is phenomenal, right? Have you experienced that in your life? The saying yes, and then the grace comes? And so our kids, I've just watched the grace of God through this whole process, the year. It is hard. There's no doubt about it. Not many people speak English, and certainly no children speak English in Russia. None. I mean, zero. So they know hello and goodbye and that kind of thing. So my children were challenged with friendship, obviously. But they became closer than they've ever been in their lives. So, we really just became a very close-knit family unit. And they consider their brother and sister their best friend. I have 3 children, for those of you that don't know. And they're 12, 9, and 5. And so I watched them kind of just become a very, very, very close to each other. And then I watched them try to, make friendships and stuff with the Russian kids that they met and do what they could to speak. And it's just been great. Only God could do that. So I just want to tell you that they're doing really well. Our family's doing well. And thank you for your prayers, because I know that was a huge part of it. So what's been going on? Well, Jerry Cook wrote this book. Some of you know Jerry Cook. He's a really great man. He just passed away this last year. But he wrote a book called A Few Things I've Learned Since I Knew It All. Do you guys know that book? A Few Things I've Learned Since I Knew It All. And I love that title. I've always loved that title. And I think that title fits the missionary life better than anything. It summarizes it all in one phrase. So, you're going to the mission field, and you get on the airplane to go, and you're the person that knows it all. And you get off the plane, and you are now reduced to the person who knows nothing. You are completely, it's like a time warp. You step off that plane, you can't speak, you can't communicate. You hope to God they're on time, that the people that told you they'd pick you up would be there, because you can't speak to the people, in customs. And you've gone from a very confident person in the United States to like a baby again, dependent on the grace of these people to welcome you. And thank God the Russian people are very gracious. But, we just stepped off that plane and we're like, oh, Lord, what have we done? And it was so deeply humbling that you're going to hear that today. That's my theme today, is humility and what God brings through your life in the mission field. It's the essence of humility. And some of you saw this on Facebook, but when we got there, they were going through a period of time in which they shut off the water for 4 days. Like, none. And we were on day 2, and so we had like 2.5 days of no water. And you've been on an airplane for 2 days. So you can just imagine, just fill in the blanks on that one, and how crazy that was for my poor kids. And we didn't even know where to buy water. So I was like, they like dropped us off and they said, hey, we'll stop by tomorrow. And I was like, I have no water. And I'm just like, oh, it was crazy. But anyway, we made it. So anyway, if you submit to that process, that humbling process, I think you can learn a few things since you knew it all. You can be like Jerry. And here's a few things I learned, just 2 things. Well, I've learned more Russian. So that's good. That's really, 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 really good. Because I was the only one going out that knew any Russian at all. And so I've been in the role of the translator and the communicator for the family. And when you only know like maybe 1,000 words or say 500 words in a language, you feel pretty good at first, and then you realize how little you actually do know. So it's like almost like the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. Has anybody learned another language? And Sarah's like, yep. Did you feel like that? When you were speaking Spanish, you were like, I know only enough to get in trouble and not get myself out, So anyway, and so as the year was going on, I want to pray for people. I want to give them advice. I want to quote scripture. I want to be an encouragement. And that limitation, constant limitation that you're feeling, and it's so humbling because all you can do is depend on God and say, God, please, I don't have the words to say, so give me the expression on the face. Let me just do something in a way that communicates my love for these people. But God has been gracious in the fact that I think I've probably learned double what I knew when I came. So 9 months, I probably have a 100, I've grown in my understanding. I can't speak quite as well, but anyway, but it has been amazing to see the little tiny gestures that you do, and the amount that you do speak makes a huge difference to people. And even here, one of the things that we tend to do as Americans is just depend on the fact that we speak the world's language, which is English, and it's really nice that we have that in our back pocket. But if you ever really want to experience just coming to a person and saying, I'm here to communicate with you. It's you that I want to communicate with. I want to humble myself and come to you. Like Jesus came to earth and he humbled himself. I used to learn a language. Actually, sign up to learn Spanish or Italian or whatever it is and get a tutor and sit down and just be childlike again. You're going to be amazed at what God does in your life through that. So maybe somebody needed to hear that today. I don't know. Some of you are like, I have enough on my plate. Can you stop? But it's been really great. I even remember I just asked a woman right before I left, I said, I was at a store, and this woman, she's helped me before. Most Russian, I don't know if you know this stereotype, but most Russians are very cold exterior on that with strangers. And especially the salespeople are known to be really, really rude. But this particular woman is so sweet. She works at the cosmetic store. And I just looked at her and I said, how are you doing today? And she got beet red. She started blushing. And she just started blinking and smiling. And I was like, I just asked her how she was. And she's just lighting up. And so there are simple things. God's teaching me that, simple things that really communicate our love for people. And one more thing about the language, I was taught to write Russian, of course, in cursive, and Russians don't print, they use cursive, like we did 50 years ago. So, but that's how they write. And I was writing, and I think I have terrible writing. I have terrible writing in English, I have terrible writing in Russian. But my students saw me writing. I have an English class, and he said, I've never seen a foreigner write Russian like that. Write it. I said, oh, well, I was told I had to write like this in Russian class. And he would say it, he said it again like the next week, I've never seen a foreigner write. And what I realized what that's communicating to him is that I care enough to learn something about them. I care enough to communicate with them. And even though I'm so childlike when I speak Russian and it's so embarrassing and I sound like a 2-year-old, it just does. It communicates so much of your heart when you humble yourself like that. So I've learned that. And the second thing is I've learned the power of intercession. Russian believers pray. Like, they seriously pray. I haven't really experienced that a lot in my life to just, well, I have. Actually, I've been in intercession groups, and I've loved that. But, for the last couple years, I feel like I've kind of gotten out of that. And when we moved to Russia, I saw them pray. And, when a Russian prays, they stand up. And so when they have a prayer meeting, it usually lasts 2 hours, and you have to stand the whole time, unless you're pregnant or you're old. And then you can sit down, and that was the only excuse that you have. And they know that I'm not pregnant, and they know I'm not that old. But, in America, we're just really active. We just are like, let's do this, and let's do that, and let's do this. And in Russia, they really know how to wait on God. And so I've watched them, and I've tried to absorb this over the last 9 months, just this heart of prayer. And when you go to the mission field, another thing, humbling, very humbling. You're reduced to only having prayer. That's what I feel like sometimes. I've run into some walls there. Some of them are cultural, some of them are spiritual. Some of them are just the way it is, and there's nothing I can do. There's no eloquent sermon I can give. There's nothing I can say or do to change people's minds. And God has just taught me to get on my knees and pray and pray and intercede and intercede and intercede. And I have just watched God work in my own heart and in my own life. And the more I pray for the people, the more I fall in love with them. The more I, forgive them, the more I have compassion on them. It's amazing, isn't it? The power of prayer, what it does for them and what it does for us. And so that is something I am deeply grateful to God and to the Russian believers, especially in Sochi, and they have taught me that. So what's God doing in Russia? What's God doing through Foursquare Russia? What's God doing through us? So first of all, Russia in general, people have said to me, wow, you moved at a crazy time to Russia, didn't you? What a great year to pick. I said, yeah, I know. So first there was the Olympics and all the media attention with that, and most of that in America, unfortunately, was very negative, especially before the Olympics. But it got better after the Olympics and during the Olympics. And then right away, we have the crisis in Ukraine. And so I realized that Russia has been in the top news stories, even in the United States, almost the entire time we've been gone, this 9 months. My God, what are you doing? Right? What are you doing? I mean, obviously there's crisis happening, there's things to pray about. But also I think the eyes of the world are on Russia. And God is in that. I have to believe God is in that. He wants our eyes to be on this nation. He wants us to intercede and pray. So I said this to you last year when I was sharing that I really feel like something's happening in Russia, something significant. God is bringing about a revival. We talk a lot about revival, and we wait for revival and stuff. But I don't know, guys, there's something happening, because I've had this call for 20 years. And when I went to Uzbekistan, many of you in this room supported me the first time I went. When I went, I was one of very few people that I knew that was interested in Russia. or that part of the world. And the 90s, the early 90s, there a lot of people were, and then it kind of just fizzled out. And then in the early 2000s, I didn't hear anything. Like I never met anybody that wanted to go to Russia. As a matter of fact, Foursquare, we only had one missionary unit in Russia. It's the largest nation in the world. We only had one for years and years and years until we said yes. So there's just something there, like why? And they would search for people. Do you want to go to Russia? No, nobody wants to go to Russia. Well, there's reasons for that, I understand. It's not exactly an easy place. But all of a sudden, lately, the last couple years, I have been hearing about people called to Russia. And I've been hearing a lot. And what's interesting is it's mostly children and young adults. 15 years old, 12 years old, 8 years old, like Micah. And we just keep hearing it over and over. My child is so interested in Russia. My 15-year-old is taking Russian. She's self-tutoring. What is that? 20 years, I haven't heard anything. And now, so I'm saying, okay, God, I'm picking up clues, and I know you're doing something. And I kind of think the main thrust of this thing is going to be coming in 10 or 15 years because he's calling children. And I feel like we're at the beginning of it. So I feel very privileged. I really strongly feel like Steve and I are going to be plowing the ground for the people to come after us and make a pathway for these young people to come. I feel very privileged that God would have us do that. But I also feel like things are going to get really bad as well. So I don't know how long the door is open for us as foreigners to be in Russia. That's why we need to seize the moment that we're in and the day. Now is the day of God's favor. Today is the day of God's favor. Now is the time, seize the moment. And because if that door shuts and we're kicked out, and it has happened over the last 20 years, Russia and those people, they have kicked out missionaries, and it's only getting worse. We need enough Russian believers to take this to the next, well beyond what we can do. And so we need to equip them now, today. We need to tell them, you can do this. You don't even need us. We're here to encourage you, but this is your thing. This is your calling to your own nation. And so it's not surprising. Steve is such an encourager. You all know that, right? God has sent an encourager to Russia because they need it. They need somebody to tell them, I believe in you and you can do that. And there's nobody better than Cecil to give that message, right? We've actually seen a family transformed in this last 9 months. When we came, they felt very discouraged. They felt like they were no good at anything. They were taken off all the ministry teams, and there's a long story behind that, but we were privileged to come alongside and just say, we believe in you, we see gifts in you, and they've blossomed in front of us. And they're actually joining our church plant team that I'm going to tell you about in a minute, but that's been really cool to see. Foursquare Russia, just briefly, there's 7 churches, just so you know. I think our pamphlet said like 10 to 15. Nobody really knew how many there were and how many counted as a real church. So they have some of those like legal red tape issues. But we kind of have decided that there's 7. And one of them actually shut this year because it needed to close down. It's going to reopen next year in a much, much healthier place, thank God. But so there's 7, but God is doing great things through those 7 churches. Our national leader, his name is Alexander, and he's in a city called Chelyabinsk. It's where the meteorite hit like a year and a half ago. He had over 300 people come to his Easter service and had 22 salvations that day. It is awesome. Praise God. And he has, I think, 4 rehab centers, 2 for men, 2 for women, operating. He's seeing people's lives change drastically week after week, and he's doing an amazing thing there. Our church in Sochi just had a concert. They started a new Alpha course. They had over 100 people come to the concert. I think they had about 10 to 15 new people for the Alpha course. And if you know, Alpha is a really powerful tool to introduce people to the gospel and the truths of the Bible. And 10 to 15 is a really good group, especially for Russia. That's a really good group. So please be praying for them as they work their way through the months and invite them to following Christ and giving their lives to Christ. But we've had a good year, but we're ready for the next level. 7 is not enough. It's just not. So we're excited about that. But and one more thing about Sochi is I have an English class, and I've been able to share my testimony with a couple of the students in Russian. I've been writing it in Russian. That's how you saw my cursive writing. And I've been able to share, like, through Christmas and Easter, the different things about the gospel in, short little bits. But God is really doing something there, too, with those relationships. And I've been really pleased to have relationships with Russian people. But the last thing I want to share is we have big news, and that is that we are moving from Sochi. And we're actually going to the city I just told you about, which is Chelyabinsk, where the national leader lives. He invited us to come because he said, I need some help. I know you guys are here to serve Foursquare Russia. We weren't there to, serve that church in Sochi only. We were there to serve the whole nation. And we really need to be in the same city with him. We're going to be opening 3 churches. The plan is 3 church plants next year in that area. And then he's going to transition his church to another pastor. And all of us, the national leader, our family, and a couple other families, are going to be moving in fall or summer of 2015 to St. Petersburg, Russia. And we're going to be planting an apostolic multiplying church. So we have plans. They're God's plan. We believe I say we have plans. We believe this is God's plan. But we really want to see a multiplying movement happen in Russia. So, there's the mathematical structure. You can add to your church. You can add churches to a movement, or you can multiply. And we are focused on multiplying. So every church that is birthed is planning on multiplying themselves. And those churches multiply, and those churches. And that is the only way you're going to reach a country like Russia, the biggest in the world, across 11 time zones, with most of the cities not having, or most of the towns and villages having absolutely no Protestant or evangelical presence whatsoever. So we have a huge task ahead of us. And so that's what you can be praying for us about. So our family's going to move twice in a year's time. The kids are on board. They're totally good with that. They know it. They know it's coming, and they're excited about it. And but we obviously need a lot of prayer on that one. But we, in that same vein, we are starting a fund just for the development of Foursquare Russia. It's just called Russia Foursquare Development. And Tim was talking about partnering with us. We are inviting people now to partner with Russian churches and really just be part of the church planting process. But we also are going to be translating and starting institutes like the one here. So one of the dreams is to start institutes and translate curriculum. So we asked the pastors what they need, and they said, we need Foursquare curriculum. We need curriculum. Please, if you can translate anything. They have books, but they don't have curriculum. There's a difference, right? And so one of their dreams is to have a lot of Foursquare stuff translated. And so we can all the Foursquare churches in Russia are on the same page with what we're learning. So each pastor, each school has like a curriculum and they feel unified in what they're learning. And so that's really exciting. That's coming up too. So I don't know how much time I took. I didn't look at the clock, but I think we're almost out of time. Is there any questions? You can ask me questions afterwards, or I don't know, what would you like to do, Tim? That's my update.
Why don't you share what you have penciled in for our team?
Yes, penciled in for the team. I am so excited. Both the churches in the southern region are really excited to host you guys. The first church is the Sochi Church. We're going to have some seminars that Pastor Tim and Susie and some of the others will be doing. And we're really focusing on relationship building and practical ministry skills in Sochi. And then they're going to be meeting with my students, the English Club, on Monday night. So they're going to get to have a fun mixer with the Russian, some local Russian not believers, but people there. And then we're also going to see Olympic Park, I think, which is just a short train ride away. And then we're going to be doing prayer walks and really ministering to the city that way. And then we're going to travel by train to another city 5 hours away. And we're going to be hosting a youth camp. But please be in prayer. We found a place, but it's really expensive. It's a holiday in Russia, so that's why we can invite people to get there, but then there's also the problem of finding a place. So it's like for kids people 16 to like 28. So it's like young adults that we're inviting, and it's going to be really, really great. And we have a lot of the stuff planned already, and we just need the people to come, and we need the perfect place. So please be in prayer for us about that. And but we're just really excited. They're all. And I think Tim will be ministering with the Foursquare Russian pastors. While the camp is happening, he'll be doing a seminar and ministering to about, 3 or 4 or 5 pastors in that region. So, and they're all looking forward to that.
Hey there, this is Cecil. My husband and I moved to Sochi, Russia a year ago. We're working with the Foursquare Russian Church, and we are so excited with what God is doing in Foursquare Russia right now and in the next few years. So our churches are really focusing on developing leaders. That's the very first step. Getting a really good structural foundation in Foursquare, and then we want to multiply. We want to see churches all throughout Russia. One of the things about Russia, it's the largest country in the world, but less than 2% of the population knows Christ the way we do. And so they really are searching for God at this moment in history. This is a really key time in the history of Russia, and you hear about it on the news every day. There's a reason you're hearing about it. God is doing something amazing and new, and he really wants to reach the people of Russia. And so we're just asking you to partner with us and consider giving to this project. We're going to be translating things. We're going to be translating curriculum, starting Bible institutes. We're going to be doing seminars for church planters, and then we are going to be starting churches. And next year, in the summer of 2015, a team of people, with us included, are moving to St. Petersburg, Russia. It's the cultural capital of the country, and we're going to be planting a church there with the hope of making a multiplying movement. So you can participate, you can join our team, and 100% of everything you give will go directly to Russian Foursquare development in the country. It doesn't go to us, it goes to the pastors and leaders there. So the link to the website is here on your website. You can follow that, and we're so thankful. Thank you for praying. Thank you for giving. And someday we hope to host you in coming to visit. So thank you very much.
This podcast is a presentation of Chapel Valley, a community church. More information from Chapel Valley can be found at www.chapelvalley.org.